So today I really want to talk about what I sometimes view as back office changes or how we're delivering the software changes. But, as I talk about this, many times customers will ask, well, why are we making this change? And so I want to expand a little bit of my presentation today to really address the changes that are being driven and the advancements in the AEC market, because those are really driving our delivery changes for Autodesk. So what I'd like to just kind of start is really at a very high level. And, when we look at technology as a whole, and not necessarily just software, technology has always disrupted how things have been made. And in many ways, it really focused on the manufacturing market. If we really take a look, though, technology today is really driving more of a fundamental disruption in how products are used, how they're sold, and how they're serviced. And this crosses multiple markets. Here's just a few examples, right? So on the left, we can see that medical devices and other products today are really being customized to the individual needs of each user. And each person who's going to purchase it, it's customized as it's produced, and technology allows that to happen. We can take a look at Rolls-Royce with their Power by the Hour program, and this is really changing the fundamental business model related to the selling of jet engines. And if we look at the AEC market, I think a great example of this is Google. And Google is not just selling Nest, which I'll talk about here in a few more minutes, because they want to sell more thermostats. Instead, they see Nest as a piece of the connected home and a way to expand their reach. Clearly, technology advancements have the potential to impact a wide range of businesses, including your business. So because of disruptive technologies, and as I shared, this is expanding all markets, I really want to drill this into AEC. And advances and changes in technology, not just from Autodesk, are really even driving changes in buildings today. Physical things are connected to one another and becoming more deeply interconnected within the systems that support them. And really the physical and the digital interconnection creates new opportunities to add value to built assets, or in the case for AEC, even for space. I mentioned the Nest thermostat earlier, and the Nest thermostat really learns the behavior of the occupants, and it offers a better environmental control and energy efficiency within that building. This is data-driven insight about how we use the space and how we scale up to environments. For example, that on the left, the Midfield Airport, and this is a building in Dubai. And this actually uses sophisticated technology for innovating how baggage handling is managed, how duty-free items are sold, how the energy performance of the building is handled, as well as efficient processing of passengers. And so really the advances in technology give us a way to respond to the high demand for high performance across so many dimensions. Occupancy levels, energy performance, and water usage is just an example of a few. So these connected systems will create opportunities for building owners and occupants, designers and contractors, as well as product manufacturers, really the entire ecosystem to extend their collective capabilities. Now, in the future, buildings and their elements will generate streams of data, and these objects will be the data with analysis to form connected systems of insight, not just for managing the existing facility, but improving the building of the new one. And we understand this through linkage of how space and structures perform in terms of both the systems and, again, environmentally and economically and even socially. So as we have more insight and control from our spaces, and this is really key, is the mobility of it, that we will have access and connect any place from at any time, to reduce energy consumption, to build more efficiency, to develop social interactions within the spaces. The vision can be as big as the AEC community and the owners of these buildings want it to be. So we can see the bigger impact of even small decisions we make, whether it be in design or in construction or in the operations and occupying of those buildings going forward. So let's take a look at really kind of the underlying technologies and how that's being impacted to really support the advances of the changes in the industry. So at Autodesk, we kind of divide this into three evolutions, into three technology eras that we refer to. There's an era of documentation, of optimization, and connection. The era of documentation really was focused on digitizing existing processes and managing that data that was a result of that. And it provided efficiencies, but it did not fundamentally change the processes. Now, the era of optimization provided a new way to solve problems that could not be solved effectively with the traditional development and really the physical prototyping process. The era of optimization really allowed companies to increase their capabilities and reduce costs and time to market. Now, the era that we're entering in now really is that of connection. And the era of connection extends beyond the ability of companies to connect just to their business processes and collaborate with stakeholders. And it's really a way to change the way they operate, to transform the product, and in this case, the building, from just a stagnant one time to an ongoing process in support of that building. What's really key to understand is what is changing is the capabilities you need to compete and are ramping up, so that the old process that may have been used 10 years ago will not be as competitive to support the processes that we see today and what will be coming in the future. And I want to break this down into 3 other areas around AEC. So we've talked a bit about the disruption of what's coming, the change that's within the market, and what it means for building and design. So let me break it down into the production, what we refer to as the demand, and the products themselves building. So when I talk about production, we think about how a building is being delivered. And we think about the engagement of working between the teams. This also includes kind of a shift in our attitude about intellectual property, and that's always been a discussion, right, of who owns the design and that intellectual property of a building in the past. And that really is being transformed by who contributes. It depends on who also owns it. You know, cloud and mobile technology means we can design anywhere and anytime, with anyone we choose. And that has really opened up the scope in terms of bringing expertise to our project. We've talked about the nature of demand. By this, what I mean is how customers want to interact with their space, how occupants drive what they need in a building, and what we need to produce in a design. This is also evolving. Clients want high-quality projects that benefit from collaboration and achieve and excel a balance between cost, project risks, and rewards. And the third is really the definition of the product, the building itself, the assets as well as the design that we use to construct them. Whether that's a piece of equipment or a system or a whole building, what we see is a huge change in production, the nature of demand, and the definition of the product. And this is happening because the digital and physical worlds are becoming more deeply entwined. Now, because disruption, as it always does, is going to create a new era of competition. And this era can be categorized in a couple of different buckets. One, access to unlimited processing power will be able to solve the most complex problems, and in fact, it will be required to solve the problems that are coming forward within design in the building. There will be seamless connection of talent so that the best ideas can come forward and are considered. We'll see intelligent digital connectivity of buildings is going to unlock new forms of value, both to the occupants who work within that building and those who own it. It's going to free access to capital by reducing the risk, and it will make possible access to sources of alternative finances like crowdfunding. And last but not least, the capabilities are going to be available to any company, regardless of size, type, or location. The barriers to access will be low. And so again, this will increase and bring on increase in a new era of competition. So when we look at this world, subscription also becomes the new norm. Now, subscription is not unique to Autodesk or even to design software. And many of us recognize, or maybe even not recognize, the impact it has to our day-to-day life today. So just a few examples, and e-readers is a great one, and I'll use the illustration with newspapers. You know, it used to be that you could have a newspaper delivered to your door, which you still can. But if I'm on the road traveling, I don't have access to my local news. Thanks to being able to subscribe to that newspaper online, I can have access to my local news at any time from any place that I happen to be. We also see this with subscriptions. You still may have some paper descriptions, magazine subscriptions delivered to your home, but I can also apply or purchase a subscription that allows me access at my fingertips, whether I'm sitting on a plane or I'm sitting in my home, to have access to multiple magazines at the same time. What I want, when I need it. And really the third example I'll share is really what we see in terms of the demand or streaming of movies. You know, the days of deciding, wow, we'd like to see a movie on a Friday evening, and I'll go to a local video store and see if they happen to have the movie I want to watch, and if not, I change my plans, to where we are today. If I can choose to watch a movie right now, get online, and stream it, and not have to worry about, is it available, or having to make a decision early on as to what it is that I want to watch in a few days. So again, subscription touches multiple aspects of our life, and really the key point I really think we see is our expectations have changed. I want to have access to all kinds of information and data, whether it's my personal life, and it's no different in our business life, anytime, anywhere, from any device. And so again, I really kind of come back to talk about subscription being the new norm. And when we look at changes in terms of the delivery of the software for Autodesk, we're not making any changes in the great technology that you're leveraging today, but we're making sure that it's available to you today as you need it and what you need, regardless of what device you need that on. And so that's where I really want to spend the rest of my time with you and with Emilio and the rest of the Microsol Resources team to talk about how we're changing the delivery of our software, answer some frequent questions, and then take some additional questions that you also might be submitting. So it's really important to also know that, you know, companies that embrace this model and balance the threat and the opportunity, right, in terms of this disruptive shift we see in the industry itself, really are going to thrive as they support and make themselves competitive to be able to reach those demands, whether it's the access to computing data or being able to leverage the newest technology and maybe a broader offering of technology when they need it for specific projects. So what I'd like to touch on, and I kind of have an overarching term here in terms of subscription, but there are multiple ways that you can access Autodesk software. And you may not be aware of it, but in some of our newest offerings, and Fusion 360 or InfraWorks 360 are two great examples, we've actually started delivering newer technologies totally by a subscription model. So many of you on this call have purchased what we would call permanent licenses. You purchased a license and you have the software in-house, and that license allows you to use the current release that you have. When we look from a subscription standpoint, many of you might be familiar with maintenance subscription. So you have a permanent license, you have that on subscription so that you get annual updates, you have home use, you have previous version access to the software. Autodesk also offers our desktop subscription so that you can actually purchase and access that software at different times or terms of time, and you still have the same great benefits. You have previous use, you have the ability to have the most current release available to you. And then the third method we've had is really just purely cloud-based applications, and our Fusion 360 is a great example of that. So Autodesk started providing new technologies and alternative ways to access our software actually here for quite a period of time. And it may not have come to your notice if you've been working on a permanent license, but I want to share with you that this shift is really a shift that's been taking place over a period of time as the market has demanded quicker access and newer technologies and new ways to access that technology. Again, as I shared, maintenance subscription is something that will continue to be available. I know that Emilio shared some important dates with you. I'm going to come back and revisit those, but I want to share that as you have a permanent license, you will be able to keep that on a maintenance subscription contract for as long as you would like. You can continue to put that on a multi-year contract, and I share that with you because many times that is the most effective way to in terms have a cost protection. As with anything, if you look over the last few years, even within Autodesk, there can be cost increases. And when you do a multiple-year maintenance subscription, it allows you to preserve and lock in that price for a 2 to 3 year period going forward. That is not going to change. You will continue to be able to keep your permanent licenses on subscription. I touched on the desktop subscription, and this also is available to you in a multi-year option, just for the same reasons with the maintenance. But you also have some additional flexibility that you can access software for a quarter, for a year, even for a month. As you may need it for a particular project, you can access that technology for that specific need. Now, Emilio shared some upcoming dates, and I want to kind of revisit those a little bit and lead kind of into some common questions that some of you have either submitted or that I have heard talking with other customers, just to help bring clarity. So on January 31st, this will be the last opportunity to purchase a new permanent seat of many of our individual solutions. There are some solutions that will continue for a shorter period of time beyond this. Vault is a great example. Will be available to purchase for a permanent until we get that converted over to our desktop delivery. But if you are sitting with permanent licenses, work with Microsol resources, and if you want to purchase any additional licenses under that delivery model, you want to do that by January 31st. Because we have found the success with our desktop and our cloud solutions, and we see how that is supporting the changes in the AEC market, we are going to be shifting all of our licenses to be delivered under a subscription model solely. So keep in mind that as you have a permanent license, you can continue to use that software indefinitely. You have your permanent license and you want to keep it on subscription to get the current update, to get the support, get previous use, just as you do today. No change in the technology, just a change in how we're delivering it to you. Another key date that Emilio shared is July 31st of 2016, and this will impact the last opportunity to purchase new seats of permanent suite solutions. So just as with the individual solutions, like a seat of just Revit architecture or Civil 3D, the suite solutions, you will continue to be able to use them indefinitely. You can keep them on maintenance, but if you'd like to add additional permanent licenses to your existing setup within your office, whether they be standalone or network, this would be your opportunity to do that. So I'm going to stop here and kind of switch over to answering some kind of common questions that come up, or actually what I might refer to as some mythbusters. And so I know, again, no change to your software technology that you're using. It's really the delivery method. So as I shared, you have a permanent license today. That license is not going anywhere. I would encourage you to make sure that that's on maintenance so you continue to get the current releases as they're released going forward. But again, nothing's going to happen to your asset. That license is there for you to use on the current release that you've got. And of course, many times the question comes up, well, can I manage and can my office run both on permanent licenses and on a subscription-based license or the desktop subscription? And certainly, you can mix both of those within an environment. And there's nothing that limits you from doing that. Now, of course, one of the questions comes up about, transitioning permanent licenses to a different type of license. And I want to touch on this because it builds into the delivery method, but I want to make sure you're aware of some options that are open for you. So as I shared on the dates, at the end of this coming January, our individual products, so like Revit, or if I have an individual license of Civil 3D, I will no longer be able to, if I own a license, say, of Revit architecture or seat of AutoCAD, for example, if I want to move that to another product, like say Revit or Civil 3D after January 31st, I will not be able to do that. You'll want to do that beforehand because we're no longer selling any permanent licenses of those products. Now, after January 31st until July 31st, the suites will still be available to purchase permanent licenses. So if I still have that seat of AutoCAD, a permanent license at the end of January 31st, and it's now February 5th, and I decide that I want to move that or transition that license, we use a term called cross-grading it, but you want to transition that AutoCAD permanent license to a building design suite permanent license. You can still do that up until July 31st. Once we are no longer selling that permanent license that you're looking for, you will not be able to transition to it. You will get the delivery method of that license underneath the new model based on subscription. And I think I kind of touched on, earlier, once we have discontinued selling the permanent licenses, the question comes up, will all the products still be available? The vast majority of them will immediately be available under our subscription model. I shared earlier there are a few that will take a little bit longer to transition over, and Vault is an example for that. But in the near future, Autodesk is moving to a complete subscription model. And as I shared before, this is not new. Many companies have gone before us, and it really is to be able to deliver to you how you want your software in a time frame that you need to use it, and be able to access it anywhere at any time. One of the other questions that comes up, should I stock up on permanent licenses? And I want to share with you some flexibility that you have, particularly if you have permanent license today on a network setup. So if you have permanent licenses that are standalone, they're not networked, and you feel that you need or want to have a few extra of those licenses as your company grows, my recommendation would be, if that's the delivery model you want, to go ahead and make that purchase before the deadline. So permanents are January 31st and suites are July 31st. If you are on a network, and if you're on standalone, I would highly recommend that you talk with Microsol Resources about putting those on a network, because it really provides you some more flexibility and access to those licenses. If you're on a network today, we will allow you the ability after February 1st to purchase what's a termed license of the product that you have to add to your network. The only difference is it will be utilized for a period of time, so you might need to redo that. So it's not another permanent license, but we will provide you an opportunity and a way to expand your existing network and give yourself that functionality that you're wanting. Now, one of the other questions that comes up is, main perks and services, just about subscription in general, and I did touch on those. Probably the most common one, or the most highly valued one, beyond getting the newest release and the new technologies, is really that ability to have previous use version. Many of you work on projects, just as I had in my past history, and when I was in architecture, to work on a project, and many times that project will span a long period of time, and you need to maintain the license release so that the entire project team is consistent. Subscription allows you access to previous version, home use licenses, as well as some additional functionality that may not be delivered just underneath a standard license, not under subscription. And one last question I'm going to hit on here for now is really, and this is one that comes up quite a bit, is do you need to be connected to the internet at all times when you're working on a subscription-based license or a desktop subscription license? The answer is no. The software is still loaded onto your machine. It will periodically go out and ping to confirm that you still have a valid license, but you do not need to be connected at all times to the internet. So before I move on and kind of bring Emilio back in with me, I really want to make a strong recommendation to everybody watching this webcast, and it's really about what you should do next. And again, if you're on the call and you use the software on a day-to-day basis, you're not going to see any change. You have the same software. What we're talking about is the delivery method of that software. And so I would recommend, because every firm has its unique nuances and unique ways that either you deploy, or the way that you work within your teams, or the way you purchase software, I would recommend that you set up a meeting with Microsoft Resources and really review your business specifics. Now, what I mean by that is, if I use the terms of purchasing your software, if you're doing it either by CapEx or OpEx, if that doesn't have any meaning to you, you might want to find out who that has meaning to in your company and invite them to this meeting with Microsoft. If you yourself are responsible for the deployment of the licenses and the management of that, you certainly will want to work with Microsoft. If you're not that person, make sure they come to the table to that meeting with Microsoft so they can really help you understand what is the best way for you to move forward, how you want to leverage the technology, and what your multiple options are. So just ensure that all the stakeholders included in that meeting to really maximize everybody's time on your side.